Hello, everyone. I'm Peter Mitchell, Managing Partner at Kingsgate Capital Partners, and welcome to Five by the Fire. These short, sharp podcasts are designed to provide allocators and influencers of capital a deeper understanding of the investment managers we represent, as well as their strategies. In this episode, we're particularly lucky to have Bianca Solomons, Managing Director of Investor Relations for Asia Pacific from Greystar. And our host is Nathan Peters from our advisory board. Over to you, Nath.
Thanks, Peter. Hi, Bianca. Welcome to Five by the Fire.
Thanks, Nathan. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for making the time to share your insights with us. I want to start today with asking you, who is Greystar and what's the history of the firm?
Sure. So Greystar is a US-based global owner, developer and operator for rental housing, which operates in the residential sector within the real estate asset classes. It includes, and what that includes is multifamily, or what in Australia we refer to as build to rent, student accommodation, active adult, which is basically 55 plus rental accommodation, single family rental, which is townhouse and single home rental accommodation, essential housing, which is housing purpose built more for the mid-market renter, and also residential credit. We were founded about 30 years ago by a gentleman by the name of Bob Faith, who still remains our founder and CEO today. And his vision was to institutionalise rental housing and establish the largest and most successful vertically integrated rental housing platform. It started off in the US, but today we are a global business, and we also have remained privately owned, with Bob Faith remaining the major shareholder in the business. We manage over $300 billion, that's in US, of residential assets globally on behalf of Greystar and our third-party owners and operators, with over 1 million units under management. Across the investment business, we manage about $80 billion across our 63 offices and 245 cities in which we operate. And we've got about 28,000 employees across the globe from the US, Latin America, UK, Europe, and the APAC business, which includes Singapore, Korea, China, Japan, and Australia.
What would you say makes the firm special? What differentiates it versus its peers in the space?
Sure. I think probably two things really stand out. First, our scale. We are a global business with over 30 years experience, and we've invested across all the major cycles facing the markets since. The other important point to mention is, in terms of our scale, especially when you've got a large operating platform, that gives you tremendous insight into data and what's actually happening across the health and the operational aspects of the residential assets that we have and operate. So, scale really drives a competitive advantage because, you're such a known quantity in the market, you've had such strong experience, you've got all of the learnings, all the things that have gone wrong, but also all the things that have gone right. And all of that experience is what we employ in our day-to-day underwrites and in all the deals that we put up for approval. So I think scale is really important in history. It's also an important point to note that our senior leadership team has remained in place for a very, very long time. So our senior leadership team have been, have over sort of 15 years experience at Greystar. And so that consistency is really important as well. Across, coming back to the operating platform and the data point that I mentioned, we've invested heavily in technology, especially given our scale on the operational front. So just to put that in perspective, Greystar manages 1 million apartments, which is a huge number of apartments, obviously, globally. But we are the largest operator of multifamily assets in the US. We're actually 4 times larger than the second largest operator, just to put that scale into perspective. And so the technology that we've invested in captures all of the data from all of those assets that we manage. And we're able to take those data points and see trends in where there's severe undersupply, where, you know, the growth in rents is the highest and the lowest, where occupancy is evolving, where demographic changes are influencing, you know, the residential market as well. So we employ that data every day in how we think about where to invest, where we should be developing as opposed to buying, where we should stop developing because there's oversupply, for example. And so that data is truly a differentiating point that Greystar has and employs and is very proud of.
That's great. And global real estate is just a massive sector. Given that data advantage, where are you spending your time? What do you think is interesting now?
Yeah, I mean, we have a global platform. So I think we, you know, we obviously can talk about each of the markets but we won't get into that much detail. I think what's really important is when you think about the residential sector, it is a very resilient sector. So regardless of, you know, what's happening in the world, some of the market uncertainty and the volatility that we're facing, regardless of that, residential's always outperformed. And it tends to consistently perform even in downturns because it's housing, it's rental accommodation, people need somewhere to live. And the market fundamentals within that sector are very, very strong, right? Affordability is a huge concern. It's not just in Australia, it's a global issue. And there is just not enough supply of housing. And on top of that, one of the reasons for that is demographic preferences are changing as well. You know, the younger renter is renting for longer. It's taking longer to save up for a deposit. But also, you know, consumer preferences are seeing people want to be living in locations that are closer to their place of employment or, you know, amenity on their doorstep. So, you know, that really sees residential as a really defensive asset class. So wherever you're at within the cycle, there's always going to be attractive opportunities. Again, we sort of go back to the data. We're very much data-led, and we have a global strategy and research team that also takes a top-down approach. So we've got sort of the 2 guardrails, so like bottom-up data-driven, but then also top-down in terms of what's happening in our projections on cap rates and growth rates and all of that. And we then make the best investment decision based off our data and our experience, and then from our strategy and research team and their overlay as well. So, you know, there are always going to be times where we're not going to invest or we're not going to develop into markets that are seeing, you know, higher supply volume, and it's taking longer to see that absorption. But then there may be some interesting opportunities to buy assets because, you know, it's an attractive cap rate, or we know that the absorption's happening quicker than we thought, and those buy opportunities are going to look really good in the future, and we can obviously overlay our operational expertise by, you know, driving those assets better with our operational economies of scale as well.
That's great. Okay. And just briefly, could you talk to us about your investor base and if you've got something in the market currently?
Yeah. So in terms of our investor base, again, given we've been operating over 30 years, it's pretty diverse, and it's a global investor base. Our investors span the largest global institutional real estate investors, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, insurance companies, private banks, wealth managers, family offices and ultra-high net wealth individuals. So, it really has a broad investor base and spectrum. Our investors span all corners of the world, but it's probably, worth mentioning that we have seen that given the increased volatility and uncertainty in markets, together with the incredible market fundamentals within this sector, we are seeing a lot more interest from investors across that, spanning all of those different types of investors within the residential space. And so, we're obviously pleased with that.
That's great, Bianca. Thanks for your time. Great to learn more about Greystar. And if our listeners have any questions, please feel free to contact the team at Kingsgate Capital Partners. Thanks so much.